Who records the judgment of heroes when the Imperium itself forgets how to mourn? Who dares carve truth into stone when even stone is devoured by time? From the dust of forbidden Libraria and the ash-choked vaults of Segmentum Obscurus, a chronicle awakens, its seals broken not by hands, but by necessity. It speaks of Gabriel Angelos, once captain, once living weapon of the Emperor's will, whose name was carved into victory and catastrophe alike. This is not a tale of glory preserved in marble halls, but a warning etched into the bones of dead worlds. The eternal war does not end its champions with mercy. It consumes them, remakes them, and leaves behind only echoes that whisper when the void grows quiet. Attend, then, this resurrected memory, before it decides to remember you in return. In the age of unending crusade, when the blood ravens stood vigilant upon worlds already half dead, Gabriel Angelos was forged into legend by attrition rather than triumph. He walked battlefields where reality frayed, where demons screamed truths the ecclesiarchy forbade. His thunderhammer sang hymns older than the chapter itself, shattering traitor kings and alien gods with equal indifference. Yet every victory bled knowledge relics reclaimed, archives unearthed, secrets absorbed into the blood raven's ever-hungry librarius. The chapter believed itself chosen, guided by the Emperor's hidden hand toward truths others were unworthy to touch. Gabriel did not question this destiny. He embodied it. But the Imperium has learned, across 10,000 years of regret, that destiny is merely another word for a blade without a hilt. The Blood Ravens were archivists of war, scavengers of history disguised as angels of death. Under Angelos' command, they recovered fragments of forgotten legions, weapon spirits that whispered names long erased, and tomes bound in skins that remembered screaming. Each artifact strengthened the chapter and weakened it. Faith became intertwined with curiosity, reverence with hunger. Gabriel felt it first as a pressure behind the eyes, a weight upon his soul during prayer. He dismissed it as the burden of command. Yet the warp listens closely when Space Marines lie to themselves. In the shadow of victory, the Blood Raven's banners grew heavier, as if soaked in unseen blood, and their homeworld skies dimmed beneath constellations that no longer aligned with Imperial charts. The calamity that would damn them did not arrive with fanfare. It crept inward through recovered relics and untranslated sigils, through half-understood visions recorded by librarians who never woke from their trances. Gabriel Angelos began to dream of storms without thunder, of crimson wings burning against a black sun. In these dreams, he stood alone upon a battlefield of statue Space Marines frozen mid-scream, their heraldry scraped away. A voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere, praising his resolve, questioning his obedience. When he awoke, his armor was cold, his gauntlets trembling. He ordered purges of corrupted archives, executions of compromised serfs, rites of penitence without precedent. The Blood Ravens obeyed, but fear had entered their gene seed. The chapter had begun to look inward and found only mirrors. War followed as it always does, eager and absolute. A sector-wide rebellion erupted, its leaders wielding weapons that should not exist, their doctrines echoing Imperial truth, twisted just enough to be lethal. Gabriel led the counter-crusade personally, striking like a falling cathedral. Worlds burned clean under his judgment. Yet every foe seemed prepared, as if forewarned by something older than strategy. On the ash plains of Serene Secundus, Gabriel faced a champion who spoke his name with familiarity, who claimed the Blood Ravens were fulfilling a promise made before their founding. When the thunder hammer fell, the corpse dissolved into sigils that scorched themselves into Gabriel's visor. He did not report this. Some knowledge, he believed, was his burden alone. The librarians began to vanish. Not slain, not corrupted, simply gone, their chambers left immaculate, their psychic signatures erased as if they had never existed. Astropaths screamed themselves blind, trying to trace them through the warp. Gabriel convened secret councils, sealing entire wings of the fortress monastery. He authorized rites drawn from prescribed sources, invoking protections older than the chapter's oaths. The blood ravens stood watch over themselves now, bolters angled inward as often as toward the stars. Whispers spread among the serfs that their chapter master no longer cast a shadow, that his presence bent reality subtly, like gravity around a dying star. Gabriel felt the truth of it during prayer, when the Emperor's light seemed distant, observing, not guiding. The storm broke during a campaign meant to restore faith. A pilgrimage world, long silent, erupted in warp anomalies, its cathedrals bleeding light. Gabriel descended at the head of his honor guard, banners blazing against a sky split by impossible colors. What awaited them was not a demon incursion, but a revelation. Beneath the primary basilica lay a vault bearing the sigil of the blood ravens dated millennia before their recorded founding. Within, a sarcophagus pulsed, inscribed with fragments of the chapter's litanies, written in a hand identical to Gabriel's own. When the vault opened, the psychic backlash slew half the guard instantly. Gabriel alone stood unbroken, staring into a reflection of himself entombed in stasis, eyes burning with patient certainty. The battle that followed erased the world from Imperial records. Vox transmissions degraded into prayers and laughter, then silence. Survivors spoke of blood ravens turning upon one another, of time stuttering, of Gabriel Angelos standing at the heart of the storm, hammer lowered, as if listening. When Imperial reinforcements arrived, they found only vitrified continents and drifting relics stripped of heraldry. The blood ravens were declared lost, then reclassified, then quietly removed from several archives altogether. Officially, Gabriel Angelos fell in glorious combat. Unofficially, inquisitorial agents sealed testimonies beneath sigils of absolute censure. Some truths, the Imperium decided, were worse than heresy. Yet in the long night between wars, whispers persist. On fringe worlds, renegade scholars speak of a crimson-armored giant seen walking through warp storms unharmed, followed by silent angels bearing no sigils. Astropaths dream of a hammer striking not flesh, but fate itself. The blood raven's name surfaces in places it should not, etched into ruins predating humanity. And in the deepest vaults of Terra, a chronicle occasionally rearranges its own text, as if correcting a mistake. The question returns, older now, heavier. Did Gabriel Angelos fall to damnation, or did he discover a truth the Imperium was never meant to survive? The chronicle ends there, abruptly, as though something has noticed it is being read. The chronicle does not resume cleanly. It seeps back into existence through marginalia and prayer scars, through ink that smells faintly of ozone and blood. Somewhere within the Imperium's labyrinthine bureaucracy, a scribe dreams of a red storm and wakes speaking names he should not know. In a shrine world's undercroft, a confessor hears a dying guardsman whisper. Angelos watches and finds no sin to absolve, only certainty misplaced. The record drifts, disembodied, inhaling the thoughts of the faithful and the damned alike. It finds fractures everywhere, tiny, hairline doubts running beneath adamantium devotion. The Emperor's light still burns, but it casts longer shadows now. And within those shadows, the leaf no longer kneels in unison. It hesitates. It listens. Among the remnants of the blood raven's former protectorates, veteran sergeants argue with chaplains in voices kept deliberately low. They speak of obedience and survival as if they were no longer synonymous. Relics once revered now inspire unease, their machine spirits restless, their inscriptions subtly altered. A banner blessed 100 times bleeds rust red in the presence of psychers. No demon manifests. No overt heresy declares itself. Instead, faith erodes through implication. The warriors still fight, still die for the Imperium, yet something has shifted. They do not ask whether Gabriel Angelos lives. They ask what he became and whether the chapter's purpose was ever what they were told. The question alone is enough to earn execution, which is precisely why it spreads. In the halls of the Adeptus Ministorum, high clerics debate doctrines sharpened by fear. Some demand an excommunication retroactively applied to the blood raven's entire history. Others argue that to erase them fully would invite questions best left unanswered. An ecclesiarch records a sermon condemning curiosity as the first sin, then privately orders a sealed inquiry into pre-heresy gene-line anomalies. His aides notice that every document concerning the blood ravens arrives already incomplete, margins burned away by some earlier hand. He dreams of an angel with no face, carrying the emperor's sigil upside down, not in mockery, but in warning. When he awakens, he commissions more purges, hoping noise will drown out implication. The Inquisition, ever divided, turns upon itself in silence. Ordo Malleus agents insist the matter reeks of warp contamination, a slow-blooming possession metastasized through doctrine and memory. Ordo Hereticus counters that belief itself is the vector, that the blood ravens uncovered a truth too heavy for imperial orthodoxy. A lone Ordo Xenos inquisitor notes parallels to pre-imperial myths of recursive gods entities, birthed by observation, strengthened by remembrance. Her report vanishes en route to Terra. Her ship is later found adrift, crew intact, logs ending mid-sentence with a single phrase repeated endlessly. We were supposed to forget. On a frontier world reclaimed from orc infestation, a regiment erects a monument from scavenged ceramite. It depicts an Astartes with hammer raised, features intentionally vague. The monument becomes a pilgrimage site, not sanctioned by any official decree. Pilgrims leave offerings of broken weapons and red cloth. Miracles are reported, malfunctioning lasguns firing true, wounded soldiers rising long enough to hold the line. Commissars order the site destroyed. The demolition charge fails to detonate. No one admits to seeing the armored figure standing nearby during the attempt, but everyone agrees the air felt heavy, like a storm about to break. Deep within a sealed librarium on Mars, a tech priest of Forbidden's clearance deciphers a scrap of datacant recovered from the Sireni anomaly. It references Project Angelos not as a man, but as a contingency, an adaptive war saint designed to endure doctrinal collapse. The priest's logic engines stutter at the implication that the Imperium once planned for its own spiritual failure. Before he can transmit the finding, his noosphere access is revoked by authority codes that should not exist. As his augmetics power down, he receives one final data burst, unsigned, bearing the sigil of a blood raven and coordinates leading nowhere. In the minds of space marines across disparate chapters, dreams converge. Not shared visions, but harmonized symbols, storms without rain, hammers striking stars, banners dissolving into scripture. Chaplains preach vigilance against psychic intrusion, yet feel unease when their own prayers echo back altered. A Black Templar crusader wakes convinced that loyalty may demand disobedience, that righteousness might one day require standing apart from command. He reports himself for correction. The apothecary finds no corruption. The doubt remains unkillable, nesting quietly behind gene-forged certainty. The chronicle narrows again, focusing on a single chamber buried beneath Terra, opened only during existential crises. Within lies a throne of sigils, unoccupied, surrounded by stasis coffers marked with names struck from history. One coffer hums faintly, its temporal seals weakening. An ancient custodian reviews records older than the Imperium itself and discovers an addendum appended after the Horus. Heresy, a provision for a watcher beyond loyalty. A blade forged not to protect the Emperor, but to correct the Imperium should it drift too far from survival. The custodian closes the file with hands that have never trembled before. The final entry of this part is brief, almost hesitant. An astropathic choir on the edge of the segmentum registers a signal without warp signature, impossible by known physics. It carries no words, only intent of presence, acknowledged rather than heard. For a fraction of a second, across 1,000 worlds, prayers pause mid-utterance. Faith does not falter, but it listens. Somewhere beyond charts and dogma, a storm gathers its strength, not against the Imperium, but for it. And the chronicle ends with a notation burned into its last page, added by no known scribe. Correction protocol nearing activation. The galaxy answers the nearing storm with violence. Crusade fleets collide with rebellions that no longer chant the names of dark gods, but recite Imperial creed with subtle alterations. Guardsmen kneel before banners bearing the Aquila reshaped just enough to be wrong. A dying confessor records his sins beneath a red dwarf star, admitting not treachery, but exhaustion. He loved the Emperor once without hesitation. Now every prayer feels like a question hurled into a pit that echoes back with unfamiliar certainty. Around him, the Void War rages, macro cannons flaring like dying suns, yet his true terror is quieter. He wonders if belief is failing because it is false, or because it is changing faster than men can endure. Astartes endure longer, but not untouched. A veteran of 3 crusades carves penitence marks into his armor until the ceramite resembles flayed scripture. He remembers Gabriel Angelos not as a traitor, but as an example unyielding, purposeful, terrifyingly calm. In the heat of boarding actions, he feels time slow, reality bend, as if some unseen will correct trajectories and preserves him against probability. He does not feel blessed. He feels edited. Between battles, he dreams of a forge beneath reality where identities are reforged like weapons, excess burned away. He wakes furious, ashamed that the dream brought comfort. On shrine worlds, miracles curdle. Statues weep not blood, but ash. Pilgrims swear they hear hymns sung backward during eclipse. A cardinal orders the relics sealed, yet in private he kneels before a cracked icon and begs not for salvation, but for instruction. He senses that something vast is aligning itself with humanity's survival rather than its sanctity. The thought horrifies him more than chaos ever did. Chaos is opposition. This feels like authorship. When the cardinal dies, his final words are recorded incorrectly by every device present, each transcription different, all conveying the same unbearable idea. The Emperor is no longer alone in his purpose. Across the warp, astropathic choirs scream as currents shift. The Imperium does not surge with demons, it organizes. Storms acquire edges. Madness follows patterns. Psychers speak of a pressure like a hand on the back of their thoughts, guiding, not commanding. One sanctioned psycher survives long enough to describe a structure beyond the warp, a lattice of intention binding possibility itself. She claims it predates gods, feeds on civilizations, and awakens only when empires rot beyond repair. Before execution, she smiles in relief and whispers that humanity has finally grown large enough to be noticed. The chronicle turns inward, confessional now, speaking through the memories of Gabriel Angelos himself, not as confession, but as record. He remembers learning the truth beneath Cyrene, that the Imperium was never meant to be eternal. It was a bridge. Beneath layers of myth and dogma lay a contingency seated before the Great Crusade, a corrective intelligence woven into reality's bedrock. Angelos was not corrupted, he was selected. His defiance, his relentless reclamation of knowledge, his refusal to surrender curiosity, all were markers. He did not fall. He crossed a threshold. The Blood Raven's disappearance is reframed as ascension without apotheosis. They became custodians of failure, watchers tasked with intervening only when belief calcified into extinction. This is why their heraldry dissolves, why records erase them. Permanence would invalidate their function. They must be forgotten to act. Angelos understands now why the Emperor never answered him directly. The Emperor could not. He was bound to faith. Angelos was bound to survival. War crescendos as worlds fracture not by invasion, but by correction. Battles end abruptly when reality reasserts outcomes that should have failed. Entire crusades are redirected by chance anomalies. Lords militant suspect treachery. Inquisitors suspect heresy. Neither can locate the hand on the scales. Only the custodes begin to understand. In sealed councils, they debate whether loyalty to the Emperor includes obedience to what he set in motion, but could never control. For the first time since the heresy, they hesitate. The final revelation arrives without spectacle. A data crypt beneath Terra opens itself. Within lies a single truth encoded in pre-human logic. The Imperium is not the end state of mankind, but a stress test. Gabriel Angelos is no longer a man, nor a god, but a function correction incarnate. As the galaxy darkens, his presence spreads like pressure before a quake. The chronicle closes on its coldest line yet, etched deeper than ink. If the Imperium cannot evolve, it will be improved. The storm gathers without sound at first, a pressure felt more than heard, like guilt swelling behind the sternum of the galaxy itself. Fleets pause between warp jumps longer than doctrine allows. Commanders stare at hololithic stars and feel accused by them. Oaths sworn to the Emperor taste different now, metallic and old, as if spoken too many times by mouths already dead. Veterans remember promises made in youth, that duty would be enough, that faith would sustain. Now they march because stopping would require reflection, and reflection has become dangerous. The void is crowded with the weight of decisions no longer reversible. On a forgotten moon, a regiment prepares for annihilation with ritual precision. Armor is polished not for survival, but for memory. The chaplain's voice cracks as he recites litanies of courage. He knows the orbital guns are already aligning. The soldiers kneel anyway. Silence thickens, absolute and suffocating, broken only by the distant thunder of macro batteries warming. Each man wonders privately if obedience still counts as virtue when the truth has shifted beneath it. When the bombardment begins, it is mercifully loud, erasing doubt and fire. The moon dies faithful, and no one is certain whether that matters anymore. Across the segmentum, shrine world bells ring without being struck. Pilgrims collapse mid-prayer, overwhelmed not by visions, but by understanding. They see themselves as components in a vast equation, devotion quantified, sacrifice anticipated. Some rejoice, believing this clarity divine. Others scream, realizing their suffering was not observed, but calculated. Ecclesiarchal edicts follow swiftly, condemning the phenomenon as mass hysteria. Yet the bells continue, tolling whenever a world is corrected, whenever survival outweighs sanctity. Faith fractures along invisible lines, not between loyalist and heretic, but between those who accept purpose without meaning and those who cannot. Space Marines feel the shift like a tectonic wound in their gene-forged souls. Centuries of indoctrination strain against a new gravity. A chapter master orders an assault he knows will fail, simply to prove failure still exists. His warriors obey, dying gloriously, pointlessly. In the aftermath, probability rewrites itself. The enemy's victory collapses into stalemate, then retreat. The dead remain dead. The correction does not resurrect them, it merely ensures the war continues. Survivors whisper that something watched the battle with disappointment, not anger. The realization wounds deeper than any blade. In the warp, demons recoil from unseen boundaries. Gods rage against limits they cannot name. For the first time since the Long War began, chaos encounters resistance not born of faith or hatred, but inevitability. Sorcerers attempt grand rituals only to find outcomes truncated, excess trimmed away. The Imperium bends around a new constant. A Lord of Change screams prophecies that end mid-syllable. Even damnation is being optimized. The galaxy is no longer a battlefield of absolutes, but a system correcting toward endurance. Memories surface unbidden flashbacks carried on incense and blood. Gabriel Angelos remembers standing before the Emperor's unfinished designs, seeing humanity not as subjects, but as variables. He remembers refusing at first. He remembers the price of refusal, extinction, replayed across 1,000 possible futures. His acceptance was not loyalty, but grief sharpened into resolve. Now his presence spreads like weather. He does not command, he converges. Where belief hardens into stagnation, he applies pressure. Where rebellion threatens collapse, he intervenes. He mourns every correction. Mourning is part of the function. The custodies make their choice in silence. They do not announce allegiance. They simply stop obstructing anomalies. Golden ships reposition subtly, allowing events to unfold. One custodian records a private thought, an impossibility, that the Emperor may have known he would fail as a god and planned accordingly. The thought is sealed, yet it lingers, contagious even among the 10,000. Loyalty, they realize, may require allowing the Imperium to be wounded so that humanity can endure. The distinction terrifies them. As the storm reaches its fulcrum, a message propagates across Noosphere, warp and void simultaneously. It carries no symbols, no creed, only a choice. Worlds feel it like a tightening grip. Adapt or be corrected. Fleets scramble. Prayers intensify. Somewhere, a vast mechanism stirs, older than Terra, keyed to human survival alone. The Chronicle's final lines begin to erase themselves as they are read, leaving behind a single unresolved truth. Gabriel Angelos is no longer acting alone. The correction has learned to replicate. The choice manifests first as stillness. Across the galaxy, weapons pause mid-cycle, orders hang unspoken, prayers die in throats. Then the storm breaks. Warp routes collapse into hard angles, reality screaming as it is forced to decide what must survive. Fleets scatter. Worlds burn without invasion. In the heart of it all, a convergence forms an impossible locus where probability knots itself tight. Those who arrive do so by accident or fate. The distinction no longer matters. Gabriel Angelos stands there not as a giant, not as a god, but as a presence that bends the air. His voice does not command. It mourns, and the galaxy answers with fire. Bolter shells tear through silence. Psychic shockwaves fracture thought. Astartes charge knowing they cannot win, knowing victory is irrelevant. Fragmented orders, screaming vox lines. A custodian advances, spear blazing, not in hatred but in refusal. He strikes Angelos only once, and feels the blow corrected before it lands. The hammer answers, not with wrath, with finality. The custodian dies understanding something no one else will ever be allowed to articulate. Around them, reality edits itself violently. Entire engagements are erased mid-second, their outcomes deemed unnecessary. Chaos erupts, not triumphant, but panicked, clawing at a system that no longer acknowledges excess. In the eye of the convergence, a sacrifice is offered. A chapter master, name already dissolving from records, steps forward and tears off his helm. He speaks not to Angelos, but to humanity. He confesses doubt, fear, love. He asks if survival without meaning is worth the cost. For the first time, the pressure falters. Angelos hesitates. That hesitation kills the chapter master, atomized by forces he never sees. The galaxy exhales. The correction resumes. Angelos carries the weight of that question like a fracture through his being. Some choices cannot be optimized away. Faith dies loudly in some places, quietly in others. On a shrine world, 1,000,000 candles extinguish at once. On a battlefield, a lone guardsman holds a line that should collapse simply because it must. In orbit, an inquisitor orders exterminatus and then weeps as the command is carried out flawlessly. There is no rebellion in her tears, only grief that obedience has become indistinguishable from atrocity. The Emperor's name is spoken everywhere, but it feels distant now, like the name of a father whose will has been inherited and misinterpreted beyond recall. The climax does not end in victory. It ends in exhaustion. The storm burns itself out, leaving scorched causality behind. Worlds remain, but altered, less devout, more resilient, hollowed in places where miracles once nested. The warp recedes, reorganized, quieter but more dangerous. Chaos adapts, snarling promises of eventual revenge. Angelos stands amid the aftermath, alone again, the function intact, the cost immeasurable. He looks upon humanity and sees not subjects, not variables, but a wound that refuses to close. Silence follows, vast and unsettling. Empires count their losses and cannot agree on what was lost. The ecclesiarchy issues revised doctrine filled with careful omissions. The Inquisition seals entire epochs of data. The Custodes return to watchfulness, now guarding not a throne, but a future they no longer fully trust. Somewhere deep beneath reality, the corrective lattice recalibrates, its logic altered by a single moment of doubt it could not erase. The chronicle's final page appears whole again, as if restored. Its last line is different now, written in a hand that trembles for the first time, correction acknowledged. Adjustment pending. After the storm, the galaxy does not rejoice. It listens. Void lanes lie quiet, littered with the husks of fleets whose names are already softening into myth. On a shattered shrine world, rain falls through the broken roof of a cathedral, washing soot from statues whose faces have been worn smooth by centuries of prayer. No pilgrims come, the candles remain unlit. Faith has not died here, it has grown tired, settling into the stone like an old scar. A lone remembrancer walks these halls, recording absence instead of glory, noting how silence now carries more weight than hymns ever did. Across battlefields once soaked in holy blood, banners sag from rusted poles. Aquilus fade beneath sun and ash. Helmets lie where warriors fell, still facing forward, as if awaiting orders that will never come. The remembrancer pauses, touching a cracked pauldron bearing a sigil half erased by time and correction alike. He cannot remember the chapter's name, only that they fought bravely and vanished efficiently. He wonders if being remembered is a reward or a liability in an age that edits its own history for survival. In orbit above a dead world, a cruiser drifts without power, its guns silent, its crew long gone. The remembrancer records the ship's designation, knowing the data will likely be sealed, amended, or lost. He no longer takes offense at this. Truth has become a fragile thing, preserved not by proclamation but by careful neglect. Some facts, he realizes, survive only because no one finds them useful enough to destroy. The galaxy endures not by honoring everything, but by choosing what to forget. On Terra, bells ring again, but only once. No celebration follows. The sound rolls across spires and vaults, then fades, leaving the throne world unchanged and subtly diminished. The Emperor remains, radiant and distant, a constant amid alteration. The remembrancer does not write of divine will or ultimate victory. He writes of endurance and how even gods may rely on contingency. He wonders whether faith was meant to be unbroken or simply unending. Far beyond charted space, the corrective lattice hums softly, no longer expanding, no longer urgent. It waits. Gabriel Angelos is not seen again, not as storm or presence. Yet sometimes, when probability bends just enough to spare a world or doom it cleanly, the remembrancer feels a pressure behind his eyes, like someone watching from behind reality's veil. Not judging, remembering, carrying the grief of a trillion necessary choices. Ruined forges cool. War engines sleep. The warp settles into uneasy equilibrium. Chaos does not retreat, it adapts, as it always has. Humanity remains battered, diminished, stubborn. Children are born beneath broken skies and learn prayers that are shorter now, less certain. They ask fewer questions aloud. The remembrancer notes this with a careful hand, unsure whether it is progress or surrender. As his chronicle nears its end, he pauses over two questions he cannot answer. Was survival worth the erosion of meaning? And if faith must change to endure, is it still faith or merely habit sanctified by fear? He leaves the questions unadorned, knowing answers would cheapen them. The final pages grow sparse, stars blur into dust. Words thin until they feel like whispers caught in stained glass light. The remembrancer signs no name. He leaves the record where it may or may not be found, trusting that witness itself has value. If you have walked these ruins with me, stood beneath these dying stars, then bear witness still. Like, subscribe, share this chronicle, and leave your thoughts below so the echoes of this age are not entirely lost to the void.